Welcome guys to my new setup, and in today's video we're going to go over what DOMS really means and what it does not mean. So let's say you're working out, right? You had a crazy leg day, you go home, you eat, you sleep, and then you wake up, you're sore. You wake up the next day, your legs even feel sore, and then you wake up the third day and your legs are still sore. This is DOMS, aka delayed onset muscle soreness, and I'm going to break it down for you guys. All right, so I have a little graph here for you guys. So pre-exercise, right? 0. Our blood lactate concentration goes back to baseline, or our pre-exercise level, around 40 to 60 minutes after working out. However, DOMS does not set in until really around that first day mark, or 24 hours in post-workout, and that can stem to 1 to 3 days like we mentioned before. So a quick little graph, we have our y-axis, we have muscle soreness, which is an arbitrary unit. And then we have recovery time on the x-axis in hours specifically. We notice that pre-exercise, nothing happens, right? When we get to that 12-hour mark, that's when it slowly starts to rise. And then between that 12 to 48-hour mark is when that really soreness starts to really kick in. And then around 72 hours, it's still going up. And then after that 72-hour mark is usually when we'll see that decrease. And then 96 hours after, it's just a steady decline down. Now, how do we get DOMS? Why does it happen? And what does it mean? So we usually have delayed onset muscle soreness when we're either increasing volume or intensity, doing exercises we haven't done before, or really focusing on the eccentric portion of a rep in a specific exercise for our workouts. We know that the eccentric phase of a rep, right? We have our concentric, the contraction of the muscle, and then eccentric, the slow controlling down. So if we're focusing a workout on eccentric loading specifically, that's going to create more systemic fatigue, which then can cause that DOMS, or that delayed onset muscle soreness, a couple days after our workout. So it's basically just doing workouts that our body's not used to, and it's like, hey, whoa, we just did this, and then we feel that soreness, right? So what actually is DOMS? What is it happening at a cellular level? We can think of DOMS as basically we have structural damage, we have inflammation, and then we have chemical irritation. What happens when we have delayed onset muscle soreness is that we see little microscopic or micro tears within our muscle cell. Right here, I just have a blown up version of a muscle, the components, the muscle cell, and then here's like a bone coming off, right? I'm not the best artist, but you get the idea. So like we mentioned, during heavy loading or unfamiliar training, especially those eccentric portions of our rep, our muscle fibers are forcibly lengthened under load. This causes microscopic tears within our sarcomeres, which is just a fancier word for the contractile unit of muscle. These little microscopic tears within our muscle lead to inflammation and fluid shifting within our tissue. This then causes our nerves to pick up on this damage, and boom, we feel sore. Okay, so we kind of went over the basis of what DOMS is, delayed onset muscle soreness, how it happens, what's happening at that microscopic level. Let's go over what DOMS isn't. What DOMS doesn't really mean. So just because we feel sore after a workout, or a couple days after a workout, aka when we have DOMS, that does not mean we're growing, right? DOMS does not equal growth. Okay. DOMS also does not mean we had a good workout. And then just because we have no DOMS, or no delayed onset muscle soreness, does not mean we didn't have a good workout or make results. So just because we're not sore after a workout, that doesn't mean we're not growing or we're not getting stronger. The same can be said if just because we do feel sore after a workout, that doesn't mean we're getting stronger or putting on muscle. You got to think of soreness. We got to think of soreness as a signal. Soreness is not the overall goal. So what should we focus on instead of feeling the soreness after a workout? Well, we just mentioned, being sore does not mean we're putting on muscle or building more muscle or getting stronger. There's other things we want to prioritize and we want to focus on to indicate we're making progress. What are some of those things? Well, if we want to make progress in the gym, there's going to be a couple things we can kind of measure in terms of how our training goes and how our training moves throughout weeks to really show that, hey, we're gaining strength or we're gaining muscle, right? Some of those things may be that our strength is increasing week by week. Our recovery is better. We're recovering better. And also confidence. We want to feel confident going into any workout. We want to feel confidence every single day we're stepping in the gym. And every week we want to feel confident. And we say, hey, muscle soreness is good. That means we're tearing the muscles. Our muscles are going to grow back bigger. They're going to grow more tissue, stronger tissue. We're going to get bigger, stronger, right? But that's not going to equal progress, right? Because if we're taking 3 days off because of the gym, because we're sore, how are we going to continue to make progress? How are we going to keep the frequency high for that specific muscle group if we can't hit it, if we're only hitting it once a week because of delayed onset muscle soreness, right? So if we're feeling sore, that's okay, fine, whatever. But if we're experiencing delayed onset muscle soreness, periodically that's fine, right? Everyone's going to have those. If we switch up training styles, you're bound to feel DOMS every once in a while, right? But it's not something that we're going to look at and be like, wow, we're going to get stronger from this. We're going to put on more muscle tissue from this. No, because we are inhibiting our ability to have our training frequency high, right? Because we're only going to hit a muscle group one day of the week if we're experiencing that muscle soreness, that DOMS, right? And then recovery. If we're waking up sore, that's not good recovery. Our CNS is probably still fatigued. Our muscles are clearly still fatigued and they're torn on the microscopic level. And then we're going to step in the gym and be like, you know what? I can't squat today. I'm still feeling sore from 4 days ago, 3 days ago, right? So we're not having that confidence we need to be mentally prepared and physically prepared to step in the gym. We also can look at consistency, right? Because the whole name of the game of building muscle or building strength is being consistent, right? Every single week we're in the gym 4 to 5 days a week. We're building that consistency. That is what's going to cause muscles to grow. That's what's going to cause our strength to grow. And that's what's going to create those adaptations that our muscle need to grow more tissue or to build strength, right? So what we should focus on instead of feeling that soreness as an indicator that we're growing is our strength is going up at least every week, right? Obviously, there's going to be a time and place for when we don't feel the best in the gym, if we're sick, if we didn't eat, right? But there should be a linear progression of strength. Recovery, like we just mentioned, if we're able to recover, we will feel good for the next workout. That's going to be a huge one. Confidence, we need to be able to be confident to step in the gym and say, hey, I feel ready to go. I'm ready to go squat again, compared to, oh, I'm still iffy, I'm still sore. You're not going to have a good workout, right? And then consistency, just staying consistent in the gym every single week. If it's 2 days a week, if it's 4 days a week, if it's 6 days a week, whatever the case may be, we just want to be consistent. So what makes DOMS feel better? It's going to take some days for us to recover, but there are steps we can take and prioritize to speed up that healing process. Number one, light movement, right? We want to increase the blood flow to our muscles. This will help remove waste products and bring nutrients to that muscle. And it can also promote lymphatic drainage, our lymphatic system, right? And then that can help decrease that swelling. So when we move, we're using our muscles to move. That's bringing oxygen into those muscles and removing all that stupid junk waste out of the muscle. Number two is sleep. We all know how important sleep is. Maybe you don't, maybe you do. But sleep is when our muscles repair. It's when our whole body just repairs at night, right? We need to sleep, specifically that slow wave stage. That's really going to help heal that DOMS. We also have growth hormone and testosterone that is released during sleep, which can help speed up that recovery. And then overall sleep reduces systemic fatigue and systemic inflammation to our body. So if we prioritize sleep, we're probably going to have that DOMS clear up sooner than later. Number three is protein. Yes, all of nutrition is important, but specifically the macronutrient protein is specific because proteins, which contain amino acids, which are our building blocks for muscle, that is what repairs muscle. It stimulates muscle protein synthesis, and that can also reduce that protein breakdown after damage. So after we experience DOMS, if we keep our protein intake high, that can help reduce some of that breakdown within that muscle. And then finally, hydration, right? If we have adequate hydration, this will keep our muscle cells at that perfect level of fluid balance. It can help flush out inflammatory byproducts, and it can also help with blood transportation and overall nutrient transport. We can also add here heat, right? Because if we have heat, that will stimulate circulation, right? Which we just mentioned above, why circulation is good. It's going to increase blood flow, bring more nutrients to that muscle, get rid of all that waste and byproducts that we don't need from inflammatory things. It can also loosen any tight fascia that we might have. It can also overall reduce our pain perception and then just promote muscle relaxation or a state of relaxation in general. So class, remember, when we're in the gym, we're not chasing soreness. We don't necessarily want to feel sore after a workout. Like we mentioned, that doesn't mean we're growing. That doesn't mean we're getting stronger. That's only inhibiting our process and our progress of getting stronger and building more muscle, because we're not gonna be able to be consistent in the gym. We're feeling too sore. And it's just overall not good. We don't care about soreness in the gym. Soreness does not build muscle. Effort, recovery, and progressive overload builds muscle. And of course, it's important to train hard, but we also want to train smart. That's all I got for you guys today on DOMS. Shorter video, maybe, I don't really know. But yep, stay tuned. I'm going to be back on the YouTube grind. Had to switch locations. Whiteboard's a little smaller, right? Maybe the quality is not as good, but we're going to still post these educational videos out for you guys. Muscular system right there. Peace.